"We are going about," shouted Ted. "Get ready." "What?" said Pat. "Now," shouted Ted. "Move!" "Where?" said Pat. "Oh!" "Get your head down," Ted yelled. Suddenly the boat swung round so that the wind came from the other side. The sail came swinging across, just missing Pat's head as he ducked down. The boat tipped over the other way now. Ted scrambled across to the other side of the boat, and Pat followed him. They leaned out to balance it again, and it whizzed across the water, bouncing through the waves, and making waves of its own. In this way they went in zigzag lines across the lake. The island was far behind them now. Ted, I wanted to get to the island with these letters. We seem to have gone a long way past it," said Pat. "It's called tacking," said Ted. "I think we've dropped a few stitches," said Pat. "No, it's because of the wind," said Ted. "It depends on the way the wind's blowing. Ready to go about? Now. You can't sail the opposite way to the wind, so you have to go in zigzags till you're where you want to be. Ready? We're going about." They went zigzagging about the lake in this way for some time. At times the island was quite near. At others they couldn't even see it. When they were near it, Ted said the wind wasn't right, and they'd not be able to land this time round. "Lovely day for a sail," said Ted. "Yes," said Pat, "but I've got these letters to deliver, and I should be getting on." "Oh, we'll make it next time round," said Ted. But they didn't. "Let's try once more," said Ted. They missed it again, but passed near enough to wave to Mr. and Mrs. Shackleton, who were standing on the island's jetty watching them. "You could put the letters in a bottle and float them across," said Ted, laughing. When they missed yet again, Ted said, "It's no good. That wind's not right. We'll have to put ashore. Tell you what, Pat, we'll nip up to Dr. Gilbertson's place and see if she can get her old motorboat out. That should do the trick." Ted landed at the jetty and tied the boat up safely. Pat was glad to be on land again. He felt very odd. It felt strange to be walking on something that didn't tip from side to side. As he walked along the jetty, he zigzagged as much as the boat had done on the water. "You've got your sea legs now," said Ted. It took Pat a long time to learn how to walk in a straight line again. "It's a lucky thing you can drive in a straight line," said Ted, as they went on their way to Dr. Gilbertson's. The doctor was glad to see them, as Pat had a lot of letters for her, and a parcel.
"Pat, was that you I saw?" said Dr. Gilbertson. "Out rowing on the lake? I got my binoculars out, and it looked very much like you. But I said to Peter, it can't be Pat, because he'll be busy with his letters at this time of day."
Pat told her all about his struggles to get to the island with the letters for the new people, and Ted asked about her motorboat.
"You're welcome to borrow it if you can get it to go," said Dr. Gilbertson. "I can't remember when I last had it out. Better still, I'll come with you. They're sure to need a doctor on that island one of these days, so it'll be good practice. Oh, and I must give the Reverend a ring. He loves boats. I'm sure he'd like to come."
At the end of Dr. Gilbertson's garden was the lake, and on the edge of the water was the old boathouse. What an odd house it was! There was a dry door at the garden end for people, and there was a wet door at the lake end for the boat. There was a little jetty inside where the boat was tied up. It was a good thing they had Ted there. It was such a long time since the boat had been out that the engine didn't want to start. Ted asked for an old towel, then for a paperclip. He opened hatches, turned knobs, tightened up screws, and pulled hard on the hand starter. In the end, he had to borrow the battery from Pat's van. The engine started with a bang and a puff of blue smoke, churning up the water in the boathouse and making the boat pull hard on its ropes.
"We're off," said Ted. "All aboard."
The Reverend Timms arrived just in time.
"What a wonderful chance to call on our new neighbours," he said. "I must welcome them to our little church."
Off they all went across the lake to the island. Dr. Gilbertson steered, and Ted kept an eye on the engine. The Reverend sang a stirring hymn about the sea.
"This is fun," said Dr. Gilbertson. "I shall take up boating again."
"Remind me to get you a battery," said Ted.
"I like your boat," said Pat. "There are two good things about it. One, we can sit in it instead of sitting out of it. Two, it goes in a straight line instead of making these stitches that you have to do in a sailing boat."
"Tacking," said Ted. "There's nothing like sailing."
"What has sewing got to do with boats?" said Dr. Gilbertson.
But they arrived at the island, so no one had time to answer her. The Shackletons were waiting on their jetty. They were very glad to see them. "Welcome to the island," said Mr. Shackleton.
"I'm afraid it's rather an invasion," said the Reverend Timms.
"Oh, not a bit of it," said Mrs. Shackleton. "Come and have some tea. We've had the kettle on for ages. We thought you'd never make it. It is a bit rough today."
They had tea and sandwiches and cakes. They were delicious. Pat delivered his letters. The Reverend Timms put the Shackletons' names down for the choir, the pet show, and the coach trip to Blackpool. Ted spotted a clock that needed mending, and Dr. Gilbertson gave them a card with her telephone number on it.
"Just in case."
"I'll have to be getting on with my letters," said Pat.
"Call again," said Mrs. Shackleton. "But don't worry, Pat, about having to set sail with our letters every day. We'll come over and collect them from Mrs. Goggins from now on."
"Thanks," said Pat. "It'll save me from getting my feet wet."
"And all that tacking,"
said Ted. "I'll have to tack up the valley with these letters," said Pat. They all said,
"Cheerio!
"Cheerio!
Thanks for the tea!"
Cheerio!"
and off they went in Dr. Gilbertson's motorboat. Ted had a turn at steering, and Pat kept an eye on the engine. When they got back, Pat's van wouldn't start.
"Your battery's in the boat," said Ted. Hang on, I'll pop it back for you."
Pat was soon on his way. He went along winding roads, up into the hills, to the end of the valley, and down the far side of the lake. Jess curled up in his basket and went to sleep. From time to time, he shook dream water from his whiskers. "Never mind, Jess," said Pat. "We'll soon be sailing home, and there'll be a good tea waiting for us."
Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat and his black and white cat. Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, he picks up all the post bags in his van.